What I've got for you today is the grand finals of the BGE Stara Zagora tournament. A 10,000 euro event where in the grand finals we have none other than Serral and Clem facing off against each other. Now, these two playing against each other is, of course, an absolute banger. They have faced off against one another many times, but I was trying to mix notably and notoriously into one word. Not easily done. Anyways, they met last year in the EWC, the Esports World Cup Grand Finals. Now, that is an infamous match at this point in time. It was a best-of-9 series where Clem took down Serral 5-0. That's nuts. Now, of course, Serral is not going to want to see a repeat of that. Well, lucky for him, this is a best-of-7, so he's not going to have to lose 5 maps, I suppose. But either way, of course, the game has changed since then, and everybody's allowed to have a little bit of an off day. Honestly, though, that tournament day, Serral didn't have an off day. It was just that Clem was playing out of his mind good. Anyway, we are on a new patch. We are, of course, on a new map pool, too. Game number 1 takes place on the map Pylon. And for now, everything here is looking pretty normal, although Clem is starting this off with a double barracks right over here on the low ground. This is one of those strategies that has lost a little bit of popularity because Zerg players have gotten very good at dealing with it, but it's one of those builds as well that will be part of the meta for a very long time, I would imagine. I mean, in my mind, this is kind of like the modern version of like the 16 Marine drop, which was like the go-to Terran build for many, many years. These days, we don't really see it much anymore, but this is just a very comfortable start, especially for somebody who's got the micro potential of Clem. Clem is an absolutely phenomenal player. He doesn't really lose a whole lot of games in general, especially not against Zerg. I think that's actually kind of a cool thing to note. Clem's versus Zerg matchup is absolutely phenomenal, and likewise, Serral's versus Terran matchup is probably the best in the world. So these two are clashing against each other with what is, well, the absolute highest level of StarCraft 2 that we have these days. Played at an offline tournament, it means that both players are playing on a stage. It means that both of them are on the same internet connection too. No ping advantages, nothing along those lines. This is a match for all the marbles. And for the lion's share of 10,000 euro. Although honestly, at this point in time, both of these guys have been so successful over the years. 10,000 euros is a drop in the bucket for the both of them as far as tournament earnings go. I think the first place prize is probably like maybe 3.5. Last year at the EWC, Clem earned 450. 450 first place prize. Not bad. Serral's sitting at like 1.6 million, I think, over the course of his career, which is nothing to scoff at. Anyway, a lot of it, of course, is in these big tournaments, but it's also the smaller events here and there. And as I'm sure everybody is aware, Clem plays in practically everything. Serral rarely shows up for the weeklies. Clem, though, he is just here for the love of the game, man. I actually think that is one of the things that is worth noting. Like, Clem in general just really seems to like StarCraft. I think at some point, if you're really good at something, it must become kind of like a job. Right? Like, I can imagine at the very least at some point. But there are some players out there that just freaking love StarCraft, and it's all they want to ever do. And Clem seems to be amongst that group of people, which is nice to see. I'm sure Serral loves StarCraft too, but he just doesn't play in as much. I'm not exactly sure as to why. I mean, again, if you have earned 1.6 million, right, in tournament earnings, and that doesn't include team salary and all the rest of it, do you really care about winning 200 bucks in a weekly cup? Maybe you should. But at the same time, maybe you also shouldn't. Because if you play in every single weekly, everybody's going to know exactly how good you are. And none of your strategies, oh, this is a nice catch, are going to be hidden. Clem with some really nice Reaper control over there. Gets the Queen to take a lot of damage. Serral does run it away, though. Okay. Roaches are coming. This was a pretty quick Roach War. And a double gas here, too. Sadly for Serral, though, it is a quick benchy follow-up, which is very curious. Normally, with this double barracks beginning, when you start off with a bunch of Reapers, it is not uncommon to transition into Hellions, but it's pretty weird to not go straight into Medevacs. The fact that Serral decided to go for a Roach push here is likely going to fall flat on its face. He expected that this was going to be a normal follow-up with Metavex, but instead what we have is Banshees. And there's already one of them out. Serral's gonna see it here in just a moment, and that is really, yeah, not a moment that he's gonna be too happy with. Obviously, it's still not something that is gonna be easily cleaned up, as we do have the Zerglings now also coming in. But technically speaking, the Banshees should be able to get rid of everything. The question is mostly, how much damage will he take in the process? Cute little supply depot drop right there. That's one of the first times we see that being used as a reason to actually heal up the depot back to full. Slowly but surely though, Terran is chipping away with that Banshee. It's already gotten 3 kills. It's obviously targeting the most important units. Excellent dancing skills here as well by the Frenchman, using those Hellions relentlessly. Some of the units though are now slipping through the cracks. Serral's making a lot of Zerglings on the back of this too, by the way, which surprises me a little bit. Wow, he's actually doubling down on just full-on aggression. He could be droning here, but he is not. Can we make another wall? Is he actually just going to be able to straight up win with this, regardless of the Banshees? It is triple CC, so Terran can just kind of lose 20 workers and still be fine. The fact that Serral decides to continue flooding Lings here feels kind of out of character to me. But you know what? It's taking those Banshees way too long to actually shut all of this down. Maybe the Banshee follow-up is actually not ideal. Huh. This is one of those weird combinations of units that we rarely see, and the interaction here between all of these troops is not something that we ordinarily have. Okay. Yeah, Serral actually just completely committing to an all-in. And those Banshees are trying their best. They have a lot of kills, 23 and 12 combined. The third Banshee has now also popped out. That one is also going to start chipping away at whatever is possible. Stim is available, however, for Clem, so at the very least, if he stabilizes, he should be able to line up an attack at some point in the future. He's gone for another reactor here. Another SCV will go down. 33 workers is actually a ton. Okay, so he's trying to re-wall now with whatever structure he's got. It's becoming a bit of a cursed-looking wall-off. Stimpack being used. Zerglings trying to go around the site here. Banshees just hitting whatever they can. Chipping away at the Ling numbers. Nidus Worm on the back of this as well. Okay. Nidus Worm together with additional Queen production. Serral is going for a hyper cheesy game number 1. He is normally your quintessential macro Zerg. It's the way that he once upon a time, well, made a name for himself, right? Like, it's how he is known in the StarCraft community. Look at that. Overseer in the corner of the main. This is completely unscouted by Clem. The Banshees can technically get rid of it, but this is gonna allow the Queens to march across the map, and there's about 10 or so. Well, how many? Okay, 8 of them right now inside of the network, and ta-da, now they've shown up inside of the main. Brilliant game number 1 here by Serral. I don't believe that Clem is gonna be able to wiggle his way out of this from here. Zerglings are flooding into the natural. You can see that the worker count is still actually not too bad here for the Frenchman, but GG gets cold. There is just no way to stop the flood. Alrighty, next up, we find ourselves on the map Tokamak. Clem, apparently not deterred by that previous game, is going to do the exact same early game once more. Silly me. I thought that when you had 3 Banshees out, you could actually stop a Zergling flood. How dumb of me. How stupid. That was still on a razor's edge though, right? So, if Clem was able to re-wall in, if Clem was able to, like, just stop the flood for a little bit, because even in the end of that game, he still had an even worker count, and of course he had the potential to drop 3 mules at once. So if Clem was going to be able to stabilize in any way, shape, or form, he was going to have the economical advantage, even after losing 30 SCVs. Mules are really strong, and obviously Serral hadn't made a worker there in a very long time. Okay, well, ultimately, maybe Metavex on the back of it would have been better. A little hard to say. Interesting that Clem actually just decides to go for the exact same build again. Very funny to see. Third hatchery gets planted down before the Reapers can arrive. Circling speed is going to be coming up here in a moment. Metabolic boost, there it is. And that is going to be the main defense here against these Reapers. Yeah, initially I thought Clem actually had that defended, because he was dancing really nicely with the Hellions. He was dealing so much damage with them. It took forever for the Zerg army to actually break open the front door. And usually when it takes such a long time for Zerg to get in, it's just gonna fizzle out. So I looked at the production tab halfway through that fight, and I was assuming that Serral was gonna switch on over to drone production, because that's what he normally does in those instances. Maybe start off with some aggression, but then switch out of it immediately. But it almost felt to me like Serral saw the first Banshee, and he's like, oh great, I can actually just double down here. Okay. Mules are getting, Reapers are getting a little bit of work done. They know that link speed is not going to be too far off. 2 drones there. A little bit of damage. Looks like we're once more going to follow this up with a factory too. Tech lab at the front. There's the starport. Okay. Is Serral just going to do the same thing again? Well, he's not loaded the drones back into a gas yet. And he also hasn't made a Roach Warren. I believe the Roach Warren timing in the previous game was about 340 or so, like 335 maybe. Serral not going for any of that. We were already past that point. Okay. Are we once more gonna go Banshees here too? I mean, I see the barracks sitting with a tech lab already. Yeah, we certainly are. Reapers get surrounded in the meantime in the middle of the map. Serral's making more links right now on the back of this. Okay, we have some hyper-aggression coming out of Serral. Mostly just using them for base defense for now, but it does feel a little funky to make that many links after you've just killed a bunch of your opponent's harassment tools. Cloaking, coming up for the Banshee. First Banshee on the production tab. Serral's gonna try and see if he can catch them. Trying to... Ooh, coming with the surround. Okay, gets 1. Nice control here, though, by Clem. Well, you know what? It's a weird fight to be having. But I guess if you get rid of these Hellions sooner rather than later, you can continue focusing on droning and creep spread and all the rest of it again. Don't know if that was worth it, though. Microing against those Zerglings off creep is way easier. Yep. And Clem still gets the creep tumor snipe there. Nicely done. Alright, where's the Banshee? There's the first Banshee going in. Second Banshee just about to pop out of the starport. There is a Spore Crawler set up inside of the main base. A lair coming up too. Spore Crawler in the natural in the third now also coming. Sadly here for Clem, he chose the wrong base. If he would have gone for the third, he would have actually been able to deal some sort of damage. Double engineering bay. Not bad. Evo chambers coming up here as well for the finisher. So both players getting ready to settle into a nice little macro game. At least to start things off here. All of the gases have just been acquired by Serral. No 4th hatchery yet. Ah, it's because these Banshees. I was wondering about that. Serral goes into Roach speed. Does he go double upgrade for the Roaches too? If he goes double Roach upgrades here, I think he's gonna go for aggressive push again. So far though, the Queens are kind of dying. And these Banshees have been putting in quite a bit of work, even though they haven't done that much damage across the board. Ooh, Hellions in the meantime get surrounded. They haven't done a ton of damage across the board. They have been slowing down the Zerg. Still no 4th. Yeah, now we finally see it starting again, or at least attempted. Matter of fact, drop on the back of this. Zergling run by in the meantime on the other side. There is +1 missile and +1 carapace together with an infestation pit. So this all feels a little bit disjointed. Serral wants to go and play macro, it seems. But he's only on 6 gases. And with 6 gas, you just can't really easily make a transition towards Hive. He needs to get those gases going ASAP. Still though, it's just a time delay. Not the end of the world there, but what about this push over here? Strange little attack here from Clem. Drops a bunch of the units off. Roach production has begun, together with a hive. What about the fourth? Fourth is gonna go down again, it seems. And this is, of course, where Clem is just such a freaking monster, right? Clem just so dangerous when it comes to that sort of aggression. Yeah, we're gonna try and start it up a second time around, but I honestly wonder if Serral should just give up on the hive altogether and just do an attack with 1-1 finishing up. Just like make a mass amount of Roach Ravager and go. Maybe that's the plan. He is making a hive. He is making 2 infestors too. But I feel like that ship is kind of sailed. It's going to be difficult now to tech up towards lurkers, or maybe he can make a couple of vipers. Not a bad idea. Armory coming down here for Clem. 2-2 can start up because of it. There we go. Nicely done. Combat shield's a little late. Clem once more, being a bit of a jerk, out onto the map, making it a very difficult section here for the Zerg to control. Alright, 1-1 about to finish. Do we go for a big push? Actually, this may just be lining up perfectly for the Terran, but Combat Shields is late. And this could be a disaster for Clem if he is not careful with his army. Keep in mind that fungal growth also deals damage. Whoa, there we go. Not a bad first fungal. Banshees, though, did target it down immediately. Some corrosive biles. Okay, that was actually still fine for Clem. Even though he didn't see it coming, and even though he doesn't have combat shields on his army, the majority of the units still are here. Chrono boosts, Stimpaks are starting to hurt, though, as a lot of those bio units are low in HP. Ultra Cavern coming up. Serral did start up some upgrades of his own. Now Combat Shields is done, so suddenly those Marines found some additional hit points. And I think Clem, yep, upon denying this base like 4 times over, just has too many units. GG. Next up, we find ourselves on the map Ultra Love. Yeah, so Serral tried to do a little bit of everything that game. He sort of had a timing attack lined up. Look at 2 drones. Acting to go for 2 expansions at the same time, just so the SCV had to choose. That was cute. Ooh. Okay, gets a worker kill there too. Yeah, the fact that Clem bullied over at the 4th there so many times, right? It kind of made Serral's strategy too diluted. I think that's the best way to describe it. Serral was trying to play macro and timing attack, but then also tech up and get the Ultra Infestor army going and transition towards... He didn't really have anything there to properly deal with that because the 4th base was delayed too many times. So Serral had already made workers for the 4th. He was sitting at 70-something workers there, which was too many for 3 bases. And ultimately, Clem immediately made him pay the price. That is one of the things that Clem does incredibly well. If he sees you making a mistake, he is not afraid to go across the map and immediately punish you. Now, that fight still looked close there initially, mostly because of the fact that Clem had originally forgotten Combat Shields. Combat Shields was far too late there, so it made the fight look a little bit more even than it actually was. Margin for error here is tiny. Maybe the fungal growths could have been slightly better there, but honestly, Clem, he immediately targeted down the infestors with the Banshees, which is just, yeah, very nicely done. Here we go again, 3.5-minute Roach Warren. Do we go second gas? He did already resaturate the base, and Serral never got metabolic boost going. So you know what? This is him once more sending out a Roach Rush. This, I believe, though, will be a Roach Rush without a Zergling follow-up. And already, triple command center, Hellion Banshee coming up right here for Clem. I don't know how successful these roaches are going to be. Plus, he may actually just not go for a Roach Rush in, like, the aggressive sense of the word. He may actually just decide to, yeah, make a handful of roaches for base defense. Ultra Love is a map that has a little ramp over here. Makes it difficult in general for Terran to just drive in. All of this feels like a pretty tight choke, so roaches can be incredibly nice. You don't really need too many fast-moving units here to be able to plug all the defenses, right? So if you put some of the roaches here, maybe the queens or the other half of the roaches over there, you should be good. Zergling speed, maybe a little bit overrated. There's already a drone on hold position here too, just to immediately build up the wall, if it is an absolute necessity. Kind of like this from Serral, actually. feel like historically this hurts Serral. Like, mentally this pains Serral very much, because he always has been about optimizing his builds. But this is just here so he can quickly plot down an Evo chamber in case the Hellions decide to get a little bit overly ambitious. And it's something we see, of course, in Protoss versus Protoss all the time, where a single worker is just there to be able to make a wall off in a pinch. Okay, apparently now it gets promoted. It gets promoted from a wall off to a base. Congratulations to the drone. Tried to not die in the process, like your brother did in the previous match. Okay. No. Clem, stop being a bully. What's the French word for bullying? It's clear that, you know, Clem, he was the bully in high school, for sure, man. Like all the other Chad gamers. Gamers are known to be bullies, right? 100%. Oh my god. Well, maybe the 4th hatchery drone should have been the wall-off drone instead. Clem is such a bully, man. Look at him. He just killed the queens. He still drove in with his units anyways. Kills 8 drones. You know what? If he has any say in the matter, the 4th base is going to be next. All right. Here we go. Queue up the barracks. How many do we have? We have 5 of them in total right now. Serral is going into double infestation pit right now, which is a bit of a panic moment. I don't think he meant to do that. Ooh. At least he gets some of this value still, but I'm a little bit afraid for what Clem is going to be bringing out onto the battlefield in a moment. Look at this, by the way. This is that early game Reaper. Just play better, guys. Come on. People always ask, how do I get better at the game? Have you considered just being good? Just do what Clem does. We're 7 minutes into the game and he's still busy microing his early game Reaper. Have you considered just having 450 APM? So whenever you make a mistake, have you considered, like, not making that? And, you know, just being, you know, perfect instead. Alright, additional overlords are coming up for Serral. Hive coming up. I am a little bit concerned for the next attack here of Clem. I'm a little bit concerned that we're gonna get deja vu from the previous match. At least Serral got the 4th base up and running right now, but the Hive is a little bit later. We don't have an Ultra Cavern yet. We have 1-1 link speed. Yeah, all of it is fine, but this is still going to be an attack that needs to be respected. That hatchery is about 40% health. Fungal, though? Fungal could change the tide of everything. Ooh, nice pre-split right there by Clem. Immediately wants to chase this down, dodges the next bile for the most part. Still, the longer that he hangs out here, the more dangerous the Zerg army will become, just because of defender's advantage. I love that Spore Crawler positioning here, though, by Serral. Now forcing the Terran to be overly ambitious and fly deep into the main base, but it looks like Clem happily takes the invitation here. Look at how much value he's getting. While Zerg is still setting up the fight, he's zooming back towards the low ground again, ready to finish the job that those Banshees and those other units here started earlier. If he can snipe the hatch, that would be absolutely massive. Not enough HP, though, on these units right now, so he's backing up. Secondary attack in the meantime on the right side. We have additional barracks building inside of the main base. 4th command center coming up too here for Clem. I think this is a perfect opportunity for Clem to go for an 8 Rex. He decides to delay the 8 Rex and go into the 4th base instead. And this is going to give Serral a little bit of wiggle room, though. You can feel the moment, right? When Clem starts accelerating. I mean, he's playing fast the whole game long. But at some point, his attention shifts from microing a single Reaper to, like, microing multiple Medevacs at the same time. And it kind of just feels like he just moves up another gear. Look at how much stuff there suddenly is. 188 supply versus 168 for a Zerg that's playing Roach. Like, this is a supply-dense army for the Zerg player. Yeah, Clem's freaking good, man. The Banshee, yep. The biles were not quite enough there, so Clem purposefully didn't move it. Banshee is working away, by the way, sniping as many of these infestors as possible. And that's one infestor going down. All right, push continues. Now that fungal was nice. Fighting up a ramp is always difficult, and I wonder if maybe he's getting a little bit overly ambitious. No, who am I doubting? Now the Banshees Well, they're gone. The infestors, though, are out of energy, and they have been, the Banshees that is, they've been working away at those units for a while already. Now suddenly Clem can just kind of, yeah, point his guns at whatever target he needs. Clinical perfection right here from the Frenchman. It is very interesting how Serral has this tendency to overpower opponents, right? Like, we look at Serral and we're like, well, how do you beat it? Because he just played too good. I feel like when Serral goes up against Clem, we have the exact same talk, except we're talking about how Clem is playing better than Serral. Like, mechanically, it's just... oh, he's just very freaking hard to beat. Maybe I should grow out my hair. I feel like Clem, he's gotten better ever since he grew out his hair, and he just seems to be getting better over time, too, and he still hasn't gotten a haircut, it seems. Every time I see him on camera, his hair is like another 5 centimeters long. We'll have to see when the power stops. My theory is currently... remember when Dark suddenly got very good at the game again? When he grew out a beard? Maybe hair in your face is where the real skill of StarCraft is at. Because when you think about it, do we have any bald pro gamers? Oh, I might be onto something here. Like, Euthermal used to be extremely good at the game, but now, you know, he's a content creator. So, you know, that immediately makes you worse, right? That's how it goes. Dude, I have to giggle sometimes because some people equate all the content creators that do StarCraft content on YouTube in the same category. Sometimes I have people asking, hey, Lowko, do you think you could take on Hearthstone in a best of 7? Absolutely, guys. Look, I'm not terrible at StarCraft. I'm pretty, but I'm not quite at that level. No. All right. Anyways, a couple Zorklings are running in. Triple CC, Hellion, Banshee. Who's surprised? I guess Demu? Yeah, Demu is also bald. But Demu is also mostly an Age of Empires player these days, right? Like, he plays a lot of different games. Demu is really good at video games in general, though. There's a bunch of StarCraft pro gamers out there that when they... I feel like there's 2 categories of pro gamers, okay? The one category is really good because they have grinded the games a million times. Like, they have played tens of thousands of games, and naturally you get good at something when you play it a lot, right? Because we do have the Hellions jumping in, trying to get some value. Mostly just a little dance here to deny the creep spread. But then there are also a bunch of pro gamers that, like, try out a game for the first time, and you give them 20 minutes, and suddenly they're really freaking good. I have seen this with many games over the years at StarCraft 2 tournaments. It's very common, in case you're unfamiliar. For, like, the player area, for every pro gamer to have their own computer, and in between matches, or in between games, or, like, on media day, which is usually, like, the day before the tournament begins, they will just be playing games. Things like, I don't know, Dota, Counter-Strike, whatever, right? Like all the games that you are probably well familiar with. And you'd be surprised how quickly they can pick up new games. Like matches or games that I have spent quite a bit of time on. You just see them giving it a shot for the first time. And the first game, they're kind of like figuring out how to play and what the hotkeys are. And then in the second game, they're already playing strategy. I'm definitely not in that category. I am in the... I need to grind a million games to get decent at something category. Anyways, Banshee going in. What I'm basically saying is that pro gamers are good at games. That's what I'm basically saying with many words, is that professional gamers tend to be good at games. Yeah. Yeah. You're welcome. This is why you guys watch me, right? For my valuable insight. Additional barracks coming up inside of the main base. We're just setting ourselves up for a nice little macro game. That's barracks 4 and 5 for the time being. Maganatha is a massive map, difficult to get across. Usually this is turned into the macro map. Now, who do we favor in a macro game between Clem and Serral? I am honestly not sure. I think one of the big advantages, right, is just having really good mouse accuracy. Like, this sounds like such an obvious skill. Like, you probably think if you play a lot of games that you have excellent mouse accuracy. But precise clicking is something programmers are extremely good at. And it's such an obvious thing, right? Like, it is something that should be something everybody can do. But a lot of those, like, for example, in shooters, right? Like, say you play a Counter-Strike. Having that, like, mouse flick ability and then immediately end up in the position where you need it to be is much, much harder than it sounds. That's like 80% of the freaking game. It's gonna be Hydra Ling here for Serral, so skipping the Roach Warren this time around. We have some Widowmine play here as well for Clem, though, which I don't like as much. Hydra's outrange Widowmines. And I feel like these fights are just easier for the Zerg player to execute here, although we have some Hellbats going in. The bio units are, in the meantime, though, the Zerglings, that is, they are on the other side of the map. So are waiting for an opportunity to run by while trying to micro against this. Good hold there. Serral would love to kill that 4th base, but I think he's a little bit concerned about the reinforcements. He should go. Okay, perfect timing. You can go. You can kill the 4th. Ah, I think he could take the 4th down. He doesn't know. He doesn't know. He doesn't have full vision. Maybe. I think if he would have split there and he would have gone after the command center immediately, I think this base would have been in a world of trouble. Now, though, the HP count is a little bit too far along. Okay. Widowmines are going to get their little drilling claws upgrade. We have additional barracks inside of the main base, too. But this is, of course, after the 4th. Do we have a Baneling Nest? No. So Serral's playing Hydra Ling into quick lurkers with Hive Tech, but it does mean that he doesn't have any Banelings here. Somebody's setting off fireworks outside. I don't know if you can hear that. Maybe they're very excited for this game. Can you hear that? Dude, I'm recording this at 2 p.m. Who sets off fireworks at 2 p.m.? All right. That is definitely a nighttime activity. Anyways. Oh, you know what? So we do have some multi-pronged aggression again. Ooh, fungal, Serral. Oof, could have had the fungal on some of these units, I think, but it's so difficult to split around. I think today is the day in the Netherlands that students get their high school results. So in the final year of high school in the Netherlands, you have to do like a giant test for several weeks. That basically is like 50% of your final grade. And I believe today is the day that people get their phone calls. I'm assuming that person passed. Anyways. The older I get, the more I'm that grumpy man, you know? Everybody's just complaining. Widowmine drop attempted here by Clem, who's really just trying to put his foot on the gas, but in this game, he's not really getting it going that much. Serral, with a very interesting Baneling-less build, is actually holding on just fine. So what Serral has done this game is go into quick upgrades and just prioritize Hydra Ling. Honestly, this is one of the most interesting builds I've seen Serral play in a while. Ever since the Banelings lost their 5 hit points with the Centrifugal Hooks upgrade, they've always been a little bit more flimsy. To the point where they don't really get a ton of value. And now, finally, Serral is going to be able to get the ball rolling with this strat that he had in mind. Those Hydras and Zerglings were just a stepping stone to be able to go into Lurkers and then also a Nidus network. Fungal! Big Fungal. Lurkers, though, are too slow to burrow here to really get damage down, but... okay. APM is going up for the both of them. This is, though, when the game becomes really difficult for Terran, right? We have seen this time and time again. Clem can manage this, but when Zerg gets Lurkers out and they get the Nidus Worms going, suddenly the game can become incredibly complex. Lurkers are just a difficult unit to deal with. Now, Terrans have been bringing back the fast ghosts. I think fast ghosts is nice. For a little bit there, a lot of Terrans were kind of throwing a tantrum, you know? They're like, the ghost is 3 supply. I can't possibly make it anymore. But then they figured out they can. Either way, ghosts are still a necessity here. You can't really deal with this type of Zerg push without him. So I think Clem is glad that he ended up getting that Ghost Academy a little sooner. Now, though, we can start seeing a little bit of that soft contain. Serral actually aggressively morphing in more Lurkers. Nice EMP right there as well to shut down that Infestor, but we already had a fungal growth going down, and looks like there is still another fungal here ready to go. Whoa! Nicely done by Serral. And Serral is ready to end this game right here, right now. This feels like a crazy push by the finisher, but it is also one that might just be able to complete the job. Now, by the way, do we have centrifugal hooks coming up? So that is the Baneling speed upgrade. Sending a Nidus Worm down south, right outside of the range of that detection zone. This is actually a banger of a timing attack from Serral. This has been 11 minutes into the making, but I mean, or 11 minutes rather, in the making. But nicely done. Still though, Clem is an absolute monster. I feel like this is one of those things where in practice, Serral has won every game by now. And then you go up against Clem and suddenly maybe the strategy doesn't look quite as smooth. Push coming through. Trying their very best. So far though, it seems like Clem is sort of holding on. Dangerous. I think pushing up this ramp was too much. We've all seen Star Wars. We all know the advantage of the high ground. Serral forgot for just a moment. Okay, so we're gonna have to sit back here and go into the Baneling upgrade instead. Impressive work though by Clem there. I really need to emphasize that because I think the majority of Terran players would have died here. Clem instead has been building this army up, and he is gonna be able to get the 5th base going now too. I feel like this is where Terran players in general kind of get stuck. Like, they get stuck on 4 bases. Now, what's nice about 4 base economy is that you can kind of do everything you want, but you can only really do it like once, right? Like, you can't really constantly remax. Getting this 5th is important. Serral is exactly trying to deny that, though. Okay, Planetary Fortress is indeed going to be denied for now, as Serral is trying to push up towards his high ground. I think for now he's happy with just that, as he's also unloading the lurkers inside of the main base. Double Nidus Worm right over here. He knows that this is gonna be attempted into a planetary once more. Infestor is sharking around the map. In the meantime, top right-hand corner has been taken. Momentum has shifted. This is something that Clem is generally known for. Just non-stop aggression, but Serral has halted him dead in his tracks. What about this fungal? Well, we do have the Nidus Worms cleaned up inside of the main now. 34 SCVs fall, and can we see a fungal here? I think we can. Boom! Pretty nice hit. Baneling trying to catch up. Majority of the Terran units do get out, but this is going to open up another attacking opportunity for that 5th base. Clem still has not finished up the planetary fortress, and he feels like this is not defendable anymore. Brilliant game right here by Serral. GG. Alrighty, next up. I got excited when we had this map apparently in the finals too. We find ourselves on Last Fantasy. This is a bit of a weird map. I'm sure most of you are familiar with it by now, but it's a 3-player map. And since 2015 or so, we really haven't seen more than 2-player maps in StarCraft 2's map pool. Either way, Last Fantasy, it changes depending on your spawn locations, as both players are scouting the wrong direction first. I like watching this map. I think it's a lot of interesting strategies on here, but there is no denying that this map, at least win-loss ratio wise, is a little bit shaky. Across the board, it just seems to be kind of amazing for Protoss and kind of garbage for Zerg. Either way, in a best of 7, you don't get too many vetoes, you only get a single veto each. I don't know which of the maps the players vetoed actually, but interestingly enough, this one slipped through the cracks. Well, we're gonna start this one off with a little bit of double Reaper production once more. Serral obviously will now know where the opponent is. Honestly, Clem is not really somebody who mixes it up all too much in the early game, right? Like, he's just so fantastic at microing the first units that there's really not a lot of reason to mix it up too much. Like, Hellion Banshee follow-ups seem to just be his go-to every single time. I really like that this map is in the map pool, but at the same time, I also don't think it's the best 3-player map that we've had over the last few seasons, if that makes any sense. Like, with every map tournament that we have in StarCraft, Map makers have been producing 3-player maps, and while I like that we have one back in the map pool for the first time in way too many years, I don't know if this one is really the best one. Anyway, Serral's sneaking a ton of Zerglings around the site. Just a straight up link flood. There's a giant open wall right over here, as there are 3 Reapers working away at a hatchery right now. I love that Serral actually pushes in here. The tech lab is gonna get targeted immediately, but it can only be attacked by about 3 of these bad boys at once. Third hatchery is going to get cancelled. It looks like eventually some of the units break through. Zergling speed right now is done. Yeah, Serral is just trying to get this game over with as fast as possible. Now again, only 3 Zerglings here are working on this one engineering bay at the time, and the rest of the Reapers are now almost back home. This is very messy. Is there enough for the Zerg? Keep in mind, you cannot repair structures that aren't done. I would love to see some additional SCVs pulled here, but nope. Easy hold right here for Clem. I would have panicked and pulled all my workers, but no. Clem's like, no, I'm not really too concerned. Only a handful of Zerglings can actually attack that Engie bay. 2 SCVs will be able to repair that just fine. Starts up the tech lab again, and... well, we have 9 Zerglings falling there in total, which honestly doesn't feel like that much. And a single Reaper dying too, which also doesn't really feel like that much. Very interesting exchange. Now, obviously, Serral did lose a stupid amount of time. The 3rd hatchery now is extremely late. 3rd command center is already done. I think, yeah, we may just follow this all-in up with another all-in. Bailing nest here. Serral's still making Zerglings. 2nd gas guys are inside of the main base, but no lair. I think Serral is just about to try and bust his way through. Clem, no way, dude. Clem is just landing the 3rd command center already. Well, this could be one of those weird things, though, where, like, Serral absolutely destroys the 3rd, but then at the same time, Clem can just lift up the command center and sit behind his wall and still be ahead. Those are games that happen all the time for ladder heroes. You're like, I have destroyed your economy, but I still have less than you do. Yeah. Serral's going in for a bust. Oh, great scout. Clem sees it. Clem sees it. He's trying to run the Reapers back home. We have a mass wall off. Look at that. Triple engineering bay on the back of this. Engineering bays are like the most HP effective structure to be producing here. He's trying to throw some grenades to actually reduce the time that it takes. Oh, for those Veilings to go in. Sorry, I just want to go back there. Those Reapers that he produced at like minute 1. Okay, more like minute 2. Absolutely critical. Look at the grenades. It is just slowing down the advancement of those Banes so much, and then in the meantime, the Marines are gunning all of the units down. Yeah, clinical perfection here again from Clem. Okay, next up, we find ourselves on the map Ley Lines. Now, Serral committing that hard into an all-in. I mean, as stellar as the defense was right there from Clem, I'm a little surprised that Serral decided to go for that committed of an all-in. Twice, back-to-back. So I just had a quick look at the win-loss ratio for Last Fantasy for the Zerg versus Terran matchup at the tournament level. I know, that's a little bit of a mouthful. Long story short, that map has about a 75% win rate for Terran against Zerg. That's not ideal. That is, yeah, the reason why Serral decided to all in there, and I guess add another loss to the mix. Either way, it is a map that he would have liked to veto, but you can only veto one map in a best-of-9 series, and ultimately there's always going to be maps that are a little bit more difficult to play. That being one of them. Now, sample size is pretty low, and we have seen many times, actually, that, like, a map that is originally considered to be quite bad for one of the races then turns out to actually not be that bad after a little bit more practice. Anyway, match point right here for Clem on Ley Lines. And Clem so far is playing some fantastic StarCraft 2. Let's see. Now, I've heard that the game on Ley Lines between these two is the best one of the entire series. So let's see. Let's find out. Some people recommend that I should only cast the game on Ley Lines. Which, no. No, we're doing the whole thing. Obviously, we're doing the whole thing. All right, triple CC Hellion Benchy, it seems. Do I even need to look inside of the main base of Clem anymore? Serral going around the side here with a bunch of Zerglings, trying to see if he can potentially get some damage in. Nice control here so far by Clem, though. I love that he backed up in between those two structures. Woo! Look, all of this SimCity is not random. It may look random, but that was all set up in such a way that you could move that exact unit between those two structures and line up the maximum amount of damage on the Hellions. This is what you get for a decade and a half of refining build orders. Little things like that. The polar bear, man. Its cuteness is just a distraction. Okay, no, I don't think that's actually part of the strategy, but still. Ooh, a couple of Zerglings hiding behind the tall grass. Serral does snatch one of those Hellions. That was hurting him earlier. Every time Terran goes into, or Zerg goes into the main base, it's like, aw. Too late, man. We don't have time to aw against the polar bear. Additional barracks coming up. Serral macroing up here. Getting the lair going at about the 5-minute mark. A little bit earlier. No Roach Warren, no Baneling Nest. No Evo Chambers. Another Zergling run by over here, man. It's like Serral's been having a little bit of a look at some of those Rainer games. He's like, yo, when do you send those Zerglings out? I don't think it's good, but also maybe I should. Yeah, we've kind of moved away, right? Over the years in StarCraft 2, we've kind of moved away from Zerg being able to just play this clinical game. Right now, in my mind, it's mostly Terrans that get away with that. Maybe a little bit of Protoss too, but Zergs need to mix it up. Now, it feels kind of dumb to be making 20 Zerglings before, like, minute 8, because that could have been 10 workers, right? So you need to make a few of them for base defense. And for the longest time, you could get away with only making a handful of links, but these days you really do need to make some of them at random times, or at least seemingly random times, just to keep the Terran player off guard. Because otherwise Terrans get too comfortable parking their Hellions on the other side of the map. Oh, this is a good catch. Brilliant catch right here by Serral, as he shuts down the Hellions. There's already an Overseer nearby. Serral is going to be able to shut down the Banshees over here as well. All right, double upgrades. Yep. Baneling speed here in just a moment. So the lair, by the way, was mostly just produced, as we have another Zergling run by. Huh. The lair was mostly just produced, I think, for... Really? We're doing this? Okay. I think it just produced it for the Overseer there initially. No. Ha! A little bit indecisive. He made a Hydra Den for a moment, canceled the Hydra Den, went for an Infestation Pit instead. He already selected the Baneling Nest a couple of times, but never started up Baneling Speed. There we go. Okay. Looks to me like Serral wants to go Ling Bane into Ultra, or something along those lines. No Hydra Den means no Lurker Den. And no Lurker Den means no Lurkers. You have to make something. Maybe it's just going to be... Zergling Bane with Adrenal Glands and Vipers? Maybe he wants to go Infestors? I don't know. Okay, well, there is a Hydra Den coming up. Wait, what? What just happened? What just happened over here inside of the main base? Serral selects the Baneling Nest, doesn't start the upgrade, cancels the Hydra Den, makes an Infestation Pit. Cancels the Infestation Pit, makes a Hydra Den? Okay. Well then. Maybe Serral just trying to prove to us that he is human. I'm a real boy. Sure. Sure, Pinocchio. All right, let's see. This is a nice attack here, though, by Clem. Yeah. Dancing out of the range of the creep right there. He knows that Baneling speed is not yet here. And that's the type of stuff, though, that like a little bit of indecisiveness and these very effective traits that can very quickly nullify one of those Hellion grabs, right? This is that section of the map where a lot of viewers think that their monitor is dying. Sometimes we get this weird graphical glitch over here on Ley Lines. Oh, not this time around, apparently. Anyways, those are the type of attacks that you have to be very, very careful with as a Zerg here. Because Clem will gladly take the advantage away from you. Nice targeting there with the siege tank. Picks up, gets on out of there. Second factory coming up. Manual retargeting with siege tanks is actually a very important part of the game. Love the positioning of those Banshees. Huh. Something that is often overlooked, but the top level players in StarCraft will manually retarget with tanks all the time. Okay. Drilling claws, by the way, as well. So he wants to make a transition right now. Either way, 4th command center again. Barracks 6, 7, and 8 coming up. A little push towards the top left. Now we go Infestation Pit. So I think maybe Serral thought for a second here that this was like an 8 Rex all-in from Clem. And maybe that's why he decided to delay the Hive Tech in favor of Hydras instead. 8 Rexes can be incredibly difficult for Zerg players to stop. Obviously, Clem has a little bit of wiggle room in a series like this now, being 3-2 ahead in score. We haven't actually seen a single 8 Rex so far in this series. So basically, when you get up to 3 bases, usually you have to make the decision if you want to make a 4th or 3 additional barracks. It's quite common, actually, for Terran players to choose the additional barracks these days. Actually, I would say it's probably the most common build. Either way. Ooh. It's got to be a misclick. That is the Cyclone upgrade. There's no way we don't have a Cyclone in this game right now. Anyways, Lurker Den together with a Hive. Clem, though, is going to fight over here in the top left-hand corner. Banelings ignoring the siege tanks altogether, letting the Zerglings and the Hydras deal with it instead. Maybe he meant to go for a blue flame or something? I mean, that's also not particularly useful. Armor upgrade coming up. Clem, are we actually making a transition towards mech? I mean, we have only 2 siege tanks. Or sorry, 2 factories. No, I don't think so. A little bit funky, though, and these fights over here are not really doing that much. Clem losing a bunch of units at the bottom, losing a bunch of units at the top. I think what may have happened there is that he accidentally fat-fingered, like, the Drilling Claws upgrade and queued up 2 abilities or something. Not sure what hotkey profile Clem uses, but it could be that he, like, just accidentally hit 2 keys at the same time. Anyways, Drilling Claws is now available for him. As soon as he's gonna have the Cyclone improvement too. A little bit of wasted resources, but not the end of the world at this point in the game. Widow Mines are being split against very, very nicely. Okay. Ghost production has come up. Seismic Spines, that's the Lurker ranged research, also currently coming up. Serral taking the high ground expansion. Clem taking the low ground expansion. Both players continuously improving their economies. And ultimately, we end up now at about the 12-minute mark with a very similar game. Both players are fine upgrades-wise. Creep spread is looking good enough here for the Zerg. Armies are looking strong. Ecos are looking strong. This is the first time in this series that we're actually in a very even stage at the 12-minute mark. Most of the time, the game we're already over at this point. There's also a map that doesn't really favor anyone, I don't think. Ley Lines feels very straightforward to me. No obvious imbalances. Soon, though, Serral is going to try and see if he can lay down the law with some Lurker run-bys. We've already seen Serral actually make a bunch more Overseers as of late. Yep, there we go. Overseer production has begun. 3 additional Infestors, too. Okay. Planetary on the low ground is finished. Let's see. Where do we go? Fusion Core coming up. Battle Cruiser? No, it's not for Battle Cruisers. I'm sorry. It's for Liberators and Medevac upgrades. How lame. How uninspired. Ah, there is another starport coming. It's gonna be for another reactor, so we can go into double reactor starport production. It would be really nice, though, to see battlecruisers again. Now, battlecruisers are one of the worst units you can make in 2025 now. At least at this level, right? Like, that's the big if. At this level, battlecruisers are shaky at best. Mostly because they take forever to produce and they're expensive. They take up a lot of supply as well, so it doesn't make a lot of sense. We see them every once in a while. From the likes of, like, Gumiho, for example, but not really something that Clem will bring out. Command center production, though, has begun. Clem is gonna look for about a dozen orbitals. And when you get up to about a dozen orbitals, you are a rich man. At least as far as minerals and gas go, you know? Like, you can dedicate all of your resources to mining. You can effectively turn off the fog of war. Just scan indefinitely. But it does take a lot. Now, Terrans at this stage in the game also feel obligated to actually hit that maxed out cap here ASAP. Because it's hard to move out onto the map. There are going to be a bunch of infestors. They can shark wherever they like. Serral's actually spreading them out right now. And if you don't have a lot of scans available, it's difficult to actually move. Yeah, he is scanning. You can see one of them. Okay, trying to see if it can make a move. He does catch that one, but it's impossible to scan everywhere at this point in time. Yep, he's scanning all over the place, though, trying to find those hidden units. One of them has slipped through the cracks. And honestly, one fungal growth may just be what Serral needs. So the forms of detection for Terran are Scan, Missile Turret, and then Raven. We never see Ravens at this point in the game. Nobody knows why. Well, Terrans say it's too much effort. Basically, they're saying skill issue. Anyway. Ooh, Baneling's going in around the site. Yeah, didn't kill the planetary, though. Serral has a stupid amount of resources in the bank. Could have easily killed it if he wanted to. Decided to back off there himself. Building armor coming up. Personal cloaking for the ghosts. We have the Caduceus reactor, which is the energy improvement for the medevac. Additional CCs here coming up. Okay. So, how many orbitals are we on right now? We have currently got 8. 2 more command centers coming up. 2 more that are done already. What about this fungal growth, though? He gets most of the units inside of the medevac. And fungal does not last long enough there for the Hydras to actually catch up. 18 SCVs fall. This is a brilliant attack here by Serral. Also, just distracting the opponent a little bit with a cheeky little lurker push there. At this point in the game, though, I kind of feel like you're doing Terran a service when you give up 20 SCVs. Maybe you didn't lose them willingly, but also when you have this many scans and this many orbitals, you can drop a couple of mules too every once in a while. And you can probably mine out your mineral fields just fine with about 50 workers. You don't really need much more. It means that you have more army supply dedicated to actual attacking units. Here we go again, though. That infestor, well, unburrowed, but immediately died. Liberators are going in through these sections of the map too. Banelings try their best, but I think this is okay here for Clem. Yeah, and the real key right now is the army size. Right, so this army size should become more exaggerated the longer the game goes on. That being said, Serral is sitting at 93 workers, and he's got way more eco here. Look at the banks. Difficult here for Clem to really get his footing here again. Even though he's got all those orbitals, even though he can drop mules for days, Serral can just rinse and repeat. Serral can send in an army like that about, well, 3-4 times, and it's difficult for Clem to really hold on against every single one of those waves. Trying to buy some time right now with Liberators. Trying to get remaxed, and he is just about to get there. Ley Lines is big, though. Lots of expansions to take. Serral taking the bottom right corner together with the top left. Of course, one of those 2 bases is supposed to be the Terrans. The map is, of course, mirrored, and if you can take a base from the Terran away, or even, well, mine it out yourself, the cost effectiveness of the trades becomes practically irrelevant. I would love to actually see some of the drones transfer towards the bottom right immediately, because the quicker Serral mines out those contested expansions, the better it's going to be for him. Nidus Worm in the back of the main. Additional command centers start up again. So we have 2 more command centers coming, even though he already has 9 orbital commands as it is. And there is such a thing as too many command centers. At this point in the game, it feels like you can get away with it, but there is only a finite amount of resources on a map. And if you spend, well, this is like 15 command centers in total right now. We have seen Terrans produce like 25 command centers in the past. If you make 25 command centers, it's pretty much impossible to ever pay for it. Because there is such a limited amount of resources. Even with a lot of bases, you still have to get value out of it, right? So it takes about 2 mules to get maximized value. After that, you do already start making a profit, so it's okay. Fungal. Okay, bunch of ghosts there. Serral is opening the floodgates for non-stop aggression. Banelings, though, ooh, did connect there, but some of the Terran units there quickly went inside of the medevac. So command center is 400 minerals, orbital command is 150, so it's 550 per orbital command. So you can kind of do the math, right? Imagine you have like literally 15 of them. And then on top of that, a bunch of planetaries and a bunch of command centers that needed to be replaced. It's a lot of resources caught up in things that don't fight. Fungal? Wow, Serral's being relentless with it. Hides off to the side once more. Nidus Worm up north. Beautiful game so far by Serral. The question is, can he actually close this out? Because this is not so easy. Even though he's got Clem, well, contained, I suppose, right? There is still just an awful lot of money available for Clem. And notice, Clem is not replacing lost workers. So Clem has got only 37 SCVs, which is not a whole lot. It means that his army, 163 supply versus 105. Army-wise, Terran is, well, not quite doubling it, but we're pretty dang close. Clem could go for the full bulldozer approach, but he would have to step on creep, right? Which is always dangerous. Couple of abductions here on the Liberators. Serral's going to be able to shut those down with ease. 7 additional SCVs fall. Will Clem replace those? He will not. Makes additional army units again. Serral now at 17,000 resources in the bank. Taking one of the expansions from the Terran over here feels almost toxic. Because he is already mining the bottom right and he is already fully saturating the top left now too. Ultimately, taking one of those 2 bases is enough. I think once one of those 2, or once both of those bases are mined out, that's when Zerg can actually just start giving up on some of the drone count and make a massive army of their own. But I think Serral is just going to try and rinse and repeat here. As long as it's at least somewhat effective, it shouldn't be the end of the world. Banelings hunting down whatever they can. Widow mines are strategically positioned though. And Clem is still mining as many resources as possible. Mules are nice, man. The base actually finished. Huh. Okay. Liberator production well underway. We have 12 Liberators, 20 Ghosts. Yeah, so this is that point in the game, right, where you can really feel that the Ghosts are 3 supply rather than 2 these days. Because this is basically the entirety of the Terran army. I mean, there are some other units around the map, but it really doesn't feel like that significant of an army for 170 almost supply. This is insanely mean. Serral's mining 2 more bases than the opponent. Like, he's taking a lot of additional mining here. He's gonna give up on one of those positions. This base should never be mineable, though. Clem is in a world of trouble here, but he has an army that Serral can't really beat. And ultimately, this is a military strategy game, right? So, like, beating your opponent's army does seem to be an important part of the game. As weird as it is, it feels like Clem is kind of stuck, but he also has an army that is practically unbeatable. Serral's gonna need to send in multiple waves of Zerg to try and deal with it. Yeah, this would be the perfect game to be making a wonder. If Serral could make a wonder right now and put like a 10-minute timer on the game, this would be the perfect opportunity to go ahead and do so. Not an opportunity though in StarCraft. I don't really like the wonder mechanic very much, but in this type of game, it would have been fun to see. Anyways, Liberator count, man. Banelings, Widow Mines, we have everything here. Crazy engagements, and I'm almost a little bit afraid to open up the unit's lost tab right now. Because Zerg, yeah, is definitely starting to hurt here as far as the resources lost go. But he's so heavily outmining the Terran that these 7,000 additional minerals lost should be more than okay. Then again, though, Clem is starting to now shark for some of those bases that are more on the perimeter of the map. Serral is now once more saturating this one, which is pretty nuts. This is right next to the Terran. Clem, though, has got all of his attention here in the far bottom right. Serral coming up on 20,000 resources in the bank. Not bad. Not bad. Cheeky little Widow Mine actually walked down to the low ground. Got 4 kills. I'm just trying to put the minimum amount of attention here so he can focus all of his attention on the main fight. But he still needs to make sure that this expansion doesn't fully mine out. And you know what? Clem is maxed. And there is an opportunity here for him to drop an insane amount of mules on these bases. He doesn't really need to rush this out. He needs to keep some scan energy in the bank, but I really like that he didn't overdo the amount of command centers. I know it may sound crazy, but he made only about 15 or so. Which is quite respectable. I think overdoing it would be like 20 to 25. I think this is... No, stop! Clem, don't do it! Clem's like, I have 400 minerals. I am maxed. I need make command center. No, stop! Oh, big fungal. Ooh, Serral coming in with another one. This is like a glitch, man. This is a glitch in Terran players, I'm pretty sure. Whenever they're maxed, and they play a macro game, and they have 400 minerals, they start making more command centers. They should stop. There's too many. Like, what we need right now is resources. We don't really need more CCs. Very rarely do you find yourself in a spot where you're like, well, if I only would have had 14 rather than 13 orbital commands, I would have won. Now, stop! Clem! Seriously, though, we can do the math, right? So we have 11 orbital commands at this point. 2 of them have died over here. 3... Okay. So we have about 15 command centers. More than we absolutely need. The Serral is rolling through, trying to deny this to the best of his abilities. I like the Corruptors added into the mix right now. Ultra's coming up. Now, those I don't really like too much, but Serral trying to see if he could potentially break through this and really hammer this game home. Clem taking up the bottom right-hand corner, and despite having only 160-ish supply, he still has a massive army, and he's starting to strike through some of this. Look at this. He doesn't even want to take one base. He wants to have the cake and eat it too. Okay, well, he's going to come back for this one in a moment, I'm sure. Reinforcing Zerg units, though, have now showed up. 26 dead ghosts so far in this game. Imagine, though, if, like, those 15 additional command centers would have been spent... Well, if we would have had a bank for that instead. Like, imagine the banks at that point, right? It would be a massive difference. So you kind of have to keep that in mind as we once more have Zerg trying to run through Planetary Fortress in the choke point. Okay. That's what we're trying to do here. I kind of like that, to be honest. I'm not going to lie. That is going to help secure this position of the map a lot better. Still, though, this is unlosable for Serral, isn't it? I mean, he's got 13,000 resources yet available. Surely this is not, like, you know... he's lost about 12,000 minerals more than the opponent, though, which is a lot. Maybe about 700 gas more. That's respectable enough. At this point, this game is going to come down to the far bottom right and this base right over here in the top left. Ooh, I love the Widow Mines burrowed over here. Clem getting a lot of value there. Okay, good snipey there on that Infestor hiding off in the corner. Little group of bio units move on over towards the top left. Serral, though, upon seeing that, immediately moves in towards the right side of the map again. Planetary Fortress is going to fall. Ultra's pretty good in that regard. In the meantime, Zerg does lose a base over here too, but considering Serral has a massive bank, a base for a base is certainly in favor of the Zerg here. Oh. A little overly ambitious on that one. Still trying to retake this expansion over here in the far bottom right. No council on that. But he doesn't care too much. Okay. Non-stop scans, though, all over the map. Difficult to catch Clem off guard at this point, but Serral keeps trying. Another Infestor sharking his way through the map. No missile turret set up over here, so no detection in this section. Whoa. Accidental rep god, you're welcome. No, Clem actually didn't see, even though this one did tunnel by one of those Infestors. I'm honestly impressed that Clem is in this game in the first place, right? Like, he has been in a very rough position ever since about, like, minute 11. And now we're coming up on 30 minutes, and Clem, I mean, he's got mining. He doesn't have a huge bank, but I also don't hate it. His army is just looking massive. And it's an army that is really freaking expensive. Just barely not as expensive as the Zerg, but it's not far off. Here goes Serral again, ready to throw some more minerals at the problem. Is there enough for him to break through this position, and is it going to be cost-effective enough? Banelings trying to see if they can potentially chase down the Ghosts. Widow Mines, though, getting so much value. In the meantime, the Ultras and the Corruptors, some leftover Zerglings, too, helping out in this fight, and they are going to be able to shut down another expansion. Only 9 workers now remain here for Clem. And I think Serral is slowly suffocating his opponent here. He's fighting for it. And this is by no means an easy game for the Zerg player, but I think Serral is playing this out very intelligently. I'm not really getting the sense of desperation that we get from a lot of other Zergs, where it kind of feels like they are getting a little overly aggressive. They chase it a little bit too far. Orbital Command has landed again. A bunch of mules are trying to mine out whatever they can. So many scans constantly being used that he doesn't actually have that many mules to drop. Clem trying to take 2 expansions. This is him pretending he's actually cooler than he is, man. There's really no way. He doesn't have that many minerals. Serral once more going through this section of the map again. Orbital Command is still up and running, but what about the Terran units? Well, they are also running. They're up for now, but Orbital Command falls. In the meantime, Clem is taking out another expansion in the top left, but again, you know, a base for a base here will always be an advantage for the guy with the bigger bank. Clem is struggling to be maxed out. He's lost a bunch of command centers, and Serral is still, well, able to remax several times over. Can't believe he got this base up. That's so crazy. He double expanded and actually got away with one of them. Serral, though, is going to try and strike while the iron is hot. This many mules, he cannot allow them to all return their cargo for the entirety of their lifespan. Clem is going to be maxed again in an eye blink, but... Okay, mules are running away. Some Widow Mines do show up, though, and we don't have detection anymore with the Overseer falling. Serral's taking up shop in the far bottom right. Okay. Okay. These guys are so incredibly evenly matched. This, though, is now looking like a final push for Serral, because Clem is no longer able to really hold on. As ineffective as these traits have been resource-wise, Clem has been completely bled dry. Clem effectively set behind his iron walls. He had a moat built around the castle, but the supply lines have run out. And I think Serral's very active siege. It's been about a 30-minute siege. I think it is going to be successful in the end. Clem, though, fighting until the final man. He doesn't care about his citizens. Look at this. He's like, no, you die. That's all you do. He doesn't know, though, how much there is for the Zerg player at this point in time, right? He just has no idea. But I think it's pretty clear with the amount of mining that Serral has been doing over the course of this game that there is no way to hold on. And GG gets called. Apparently, those final citizens get to live. But that means we are going to go to game number 7. And that means that it all comes down to this. Final game is on torches. Quite a tricky map. Not an easy one for straight up macro whatsoever. First off, the players spawn on the right side of the map. Top right versus bottom right. There's this entire right side section of the map that is inaccessible early on by ground units until players either mine out the mineral fields over here, or they drop a unit behind it, or you destroy their rocks. Now, these are mineral fields that only have a couple of minerals in them each, so it takes only a handful of trips for the workers to actually mine it out, but it does take some time. And likewise, these rocks will automatically bleed out by about minute 8. You can, however, speed up the process by attacking them, and it opens up the entire right side of the map. Furthermore, we have an expansion layout on this map that's a little bit funky. So, generally speaking, we don't have shared bases like this. There's one gas on either side. Players could technically mine, well, this at the exact same time. We have a similar expansion layout over here on the left side of the map. Again, a very odd one. But they're golden mineral lines, so if you can acquire them, you can get a lot of resources very, very quickly. And then lastly, all the way over here at the 9 o'clock position, we have a healing shrine where you can park units and very rapidly heal them back up. Very different than the previous map for sure. Still generally quite macro-oriented. Alright, Serral's gonna start working on those skinny mineral fields right from the start. Yeah, so he can mine out the wall and take this as his third base. Usually, Zerg players like to expand away from the opponent. But on this map, you have the only alternative of this one, really. Because if you have this still up, and the opponent blocks the third base over here, your only other choice is this one, which is very tricky to defend. So I think Serral mostly just mined this open here, so he could, if he does get blocked on the left, take the expansion on the right instead. We've seen this a bunch of times from Zergs, or maybe he's just going to take it straight up. Oh, he is just going to take it straight up. Very interesting. Clem doesn't know this yet, but he is going to check now. Oh, he's not going to check. He has checked on the left side that there is no third base over there. No queen yet, though. Okay. It did just spawn. We can go for double extractors here. Nicely done by Serral. Clem waiting for the extractor to get cancelled, but not going to happen just yet. All right. Third command center is going to fire up nice and quickly, as Clem is also positioning it in such a way that he may just be thinking about making a base of his own. On the exact mirrored location as the opponent is currently building a base. And then suddenly the players become, well, next door neighbors. Who benefits from being a neighbor more? Generally speaking, Zerg players like to use that superior mobility by creating more space, right? The faster units will benefit from having more space. However, there are unit compositions for Zerg that would benefit from a shorter buy distance, and curious to see how Serral's going to approach this. You will see the positioning here of the third CC in just a moment. Roach Warren, though, starts up. 3 minutes and 25 seconds on the Roach Warren. Clem did not see it. We've already seen a Roach all-in earlier on in this particular series. Serral did not go Roach speed, or Zerking speed, by the way. So, Zerking speed is not there. Meaning that he is going to have the opportunity to make a lot of Roaches, although, again, he could just make them defensively, too. Dangerous play here from Serral, though. He's playing with fire right now. We should cancel the SCV and make an orbital. Yeah. Second gas geyser on the low ground here for Clem. Who, by the way, did not go for Heli and Banshee this time around. This is a double barracks opener. So double racks into factory starport. And I'm assuming this one is going to be switched onto the reactor immediately for double medevac production. So we end up with a different type of state to the game than what we have seen so far. I would love to see a creep tumor go in this direction ASAP. Just to goop up this entire section of the map. Clemdo is already hunting. Let's see. Evo chamber block. Very quick on the Evo chamber block there, if I'm being honest. Evo chamber block over here too. Now that's cute. I haven't ever seen anybody partially mine out the mineral vault only to be able to put down an Evo chamber. That's fun. He's got multiple doors. This is like a door in the middle of a room. A little bit weird, but maybe technically a good idea. I don't know. All right, here we go. Medevac production indeed has begun. Barracks number 3 has started up. Additional gases, though, are coming too. Engineering bay in the back of the main, 2 of them. Makes a lot of sense. 3rd Command Center will likely be thinking about going down to the low ground in a second here. Although Clem could also opt to go for the horizontal one. Not a bad choice if he wants to drag out the game a little bit. Serral going into a single Evo chamber. Prioritizing armor. And once more, he's got a door guardian. In case the Hellions drive by. Now, in this instance, it's only, I think, 2 Hellions in total. Yeah. So Clem hasn't actually doubled down on Hellion production. After the previous 6 games, he's shown us a ton of Hellion play. So I think he's assuming here that maybe Serral might think that that is also the case. Wolof is still going to complete. What about this attack over here? Siege tank production is well underway, though. First one just rolled out of the factory, and these are going to be absolutely essential. Serral can deal with them with corrosive biles, or later on into the game with Vipers. Blinding Cloud, Abductions, all of the Viper abilities really are good. Maybe not Parasitic Bomb. Against siege tanks, that is. But still a good ability across the board. Roach Speed, though, is going to finish up. Ooh, nice grenade. He wants to scout. He wants to see if there's a Spire. Spire, Nidus Worm, that sort of thing could be a problem. Clem doesn't see much. But still a lovely scout right there. Once more, using the Reaper grenade to push those Zerg units out of position. Okay. Link speed, though, is coming up now. Double bunker here for Clem. He is anticipating a big attack. Also, partially mining out the mineral fields, by the way, which I kind of like. Reduce some of the surface area there on one of the siege tanks. Okay. Serral has a real potential to end the game with this particular push. It is going to hit like a truck. It looks like he's actually going to send units around. Clem not using a scan here, but instead trying to scout with a medevac. I think this is a very underutilized ability that Terrans have access to. Yeah, Serral's going to try and shove. Here we go. Does he have enough? He's got about a 50 supply advantage, but there are a lot of SCVs, and obviously he's pushing into a sieged up position. First bunker goes down within just a couple of seconds. Lots of SCVs are also dying. Siege tanks are far enough in the back, though, that the Zerg units can't really easily close the distance. One tank, okay, does not quite die there immediately. And despite all of the SCV losses, that was still a hold for Clem, it looks like. Queen's now also joining in the fray, though, throwing down a couple of those transfusions as Serral's trying to reinforce this as quickly as possible. The creep is slowly moving forward, too, and if you can create a chokehold, right, with the queens going around the site, then suddenly those siege tanks can be justified pretty easily for the Zerg player. These creep tumors are not going to be stoppable. I think Clem sniped one of them, but the rest are going to continue. Serral should step outside of range, though, of those siege tanks for now, and take a bit of a breather, maybe. Good micro here by Clem. Ooh, walks out of that corrosive ball, too, but the creep, man, the creep is going to be a massive problem. 2-2 has started up in the meantime. Serral only on a +1 armor. Means that he's very committed. There is another hatchery over here on the left side, but no drones. Mules are slowly working away at that work account. Serral trying to see if he can potentially snipe down one of those siege tanks. I love this little hit squad of Ravagers. That is a siege tank down the drain. The Overseer here providing high ground vision. Okay, Clem is gonna try and see if he can hunt this down, but he doesn't know where the Ravagers snuck off to. That now is going to open up the opportunity for Serral to be moving forward here. Queens in the front could tank a little bit of damage, but they can also stand on creep now and actually transfuse some of those units back up to full. The siege tanks, though, up north here are dealing a ton of damage, and Serral needs to back up once more. Brenda does fall. The hit squad of Ravagers comes into the fray as well. What was previously about a 50 supply advantage is no more, well, than like 30 here. 2-2 is ticking. That is going to be a massive power spike for Terran. If you can get those upgrades done and still be in a similar position as he in right now, Clem is going to be able to just destroy the Roaches and Ravagers with Marines alone. Still, though, one Ravager here behind the back. I quite like it. Maybe a little overly ambitious, but it is going to deny some mining. +1 missile has started up too, by the way, for Serral, who hasn't made a drone in ages. This right now is on a razor's edge. Slowly but surely, the upgrades are coming in. Serral knows that they must be coming in pretty soon. He wants to try and invite this Terran player onto creep. Clem dances on the perimeter, but does not want to go too deep. And Clem honestly is playing this very, very well. Those siege tanks have been absolutely pivotal, serving as the backbone of this Terran army. He's pretending like he wants to go in. He doesn't actually want to go in before 2-2 is done. But now it's going to finish. And that is +1 damage and +1 armor here for every single one of those Marines. Roach is going around the site. Serral realizes he needs to sort of go and do something else. Decides to go into an infestation pit. Supply-wise, he's still fine though. Knocks down a lot of the supply depots. Now blocking the Terran here as far as the supply count goes. Empty medevac drop. Or at least now empty. Maybe there were some units inside of it. But either way, Serral has let his foot off the gas a little bit. And I think it's the correct play. Siege tank numbers are growing. Okay, Burrow also coming up. Another factory here on the production tab too for Clem. Double factory production is phenomenal. 4th command center starts up. So again, 4th command center before barracks 6, 7, and 8. Clem starts getting rid of some of the creep here in this section of the map. Oh, this is close. Now it's the Terran's turn to try and move in. Moving in through this choke point, though, is tough with that many corrosive balls rained from the skies. We do have an infestation pit, though, done here, and infestors are coming up. Roach is going in. He wants to snipe those siege tanks, but the Marines and the Marauders are dealing so much freaking damage now with the 2-2 upgrades here. Clem doesn't want to overextend, decides to back up. Siege tanks are going to get sniped. Ooh, one of them, for some reason, survives with 4 HP. Must have had a little bit of a repair there from one of those SCVs, as Clem wants to take the golden mineral line. That is dangerous. If you can make a planetary, though, that would be phenomenal. Serral now does have access, of course, to fungal growth. Pre-splitting here from Clem is excellent. He knows that these units are out, so he's already splitting up the units to mitigate any splash damage. Corrosive balls do go down, but not enough here. Good repairs. Excellent repairs here by Clem. Fungal. Okay, Fungal mostly dodged. We do now have the Tunneling Claws upgrade available as well for Serral, who's looking to see if he can maybe move in. Siege tank does fall, but the Marines and the Marauders are still available. We have a very similar setup as we had previously on the Terran side of the map. Now it's up to Clem to try and see if he can potentially snipe an expansion over here. I wouldn't mind seeing Serral maybe take this base in the far bottom left, because this looks like a position that is going to be near impossible to keep up. Planetary Fortress is now finishing up. Queens are here, but they don't have enough energy for transfusion. Creep has been dealt with quite nicely, and there we go. The hatchery does fall. Serral gives up the position. Point right here for Clem, it seems, but the roaches have tunneled around. Couple roaches in the main, couple roaches in the natural. Serral still wants to hold on to this spot. Terran units, though, are reinforcing this through the creep. He doesn't know where the infestors are. They could be moving in around the left. Clem is making the assumption that they likely are with the main army, and so far, at the very least, he is correct. Still close. Still close, but I'm liking this position for Clem better. Oh, this is so risky. He decides to move in through the choke point. A push for all the marbles. Does he have enough to actually get the job done? Corrosive balls and fungal growths in a choke point. It's one of the worst case scenarios for Terran. Little group of Ravagers going around the site. Those roaches, though, are forcing the Terran to put in some action, because 27 SCVs have died. It's only a handful of roaches, but they have put in more work than the majority of the Zerg's army. I love this little drop into the main base, elevatoring some of his units up towards that high ground. Siege tanks, though, still available. One of them does get balled down. Corrosive balls do also connect with the Liberators there and a couple of the medevacs. Zerg's army here looking absolutely massive again. What about this choke point, though? Those siege tanks having a grand old time. Bio units inside of the main base. Roaches, in the meantime, on the other side of the map have been cleaned up. Reinforcing units are actually just all army hotkeyed and stimped straight through the center of the map. Clem trying to get those troops here ASAP. Man, those handful of siege tanks have been so good. Whew. Double siege tank production's not bad, but he is still prioritizing Marines and Marauders. GG, well played, and a congratulations gets cold. What a game to close out the series. Phenomenal, phenomenal StarCraft 2. I don't really think we can hope for much higher. When it comes to like a skill level for ZVT, I don't think we can really hope for a better series than these two clashing against each other. And in my mind, Serral and Clem are right now certainly the number 1 and 2 in the world. Now, Serral historically never really lost to anyone, but it seems like over the last year and a half or so, Clem has had his number, and I mean, at this point, I kind of feel like the stars align once more, right? I wouldn't be surprised if they will face off in the grand finals of the EWC at this rate. I mean, at this point, it feels like Clem has the opportunity to go back-to-back world championships. We'll see.